Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review.
Upon further review,
And in this edition, we'll be talking about the Week 8 matchup between the Chicago Bears and the New England Patriots. You can catch this game on October 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and that'll be aired on your local Fox affiliates. So the Bears are heading into this game with a record of 3-4, and the Patriots are 5-2. The Bears started off with a loss at home to Buffalo, and then they went on the road and they picked up 2 victories in a row as they won in San Francisco, then they won in New York against the Jets, then they came back home and they lost to the Packers, and then they went to Carolina and they lost to the Panthers, but then they went to Atlanta and they picked up the victory, but then they lost for the third time at home as they have yet to win a game at home as they lost to the Dolphins last week. So all of their victories have come on the road as they're 3-1 on the road, and that's where they'll be this week as they're going to be facing the Patriots. And the Patriots started off with a loss in Miami in Week 1, but then they went to Minnesota and evened up their record, and then they hosted the Raiders and got the win to go above 500, but then they went to Kansas City, went back to 500 at 2-2, but then they won the next 3 straight as they hosted the Bengals, got a huge win there, and then they went to Buffalo and beat the Bills, and then they hosted the Jets last Thursday and eked out the win by just 2 points over the Jets in that division rivalry game. And now they host the Chicago Bears. So let's look at the numbers for these two teams. And when it comes to passing offense, the Bears are 10th in the NFL in passing yards per game. The Patriots are 15th. We look at passing defense, the Bears are 19th in passing yards allowed per game, and the Patriots are number 1. So the advantage in the passing game clearly goes to New England. Then we look at the rushing offense of both these two teams. The Bears are 25th in the NFL in rushing the ball, and the Patriots are 20th. We look at rushing defense. The Bears are 13th, and the Patriots are 24th. So the slight advantage there goes to Chicago in running the ball. And we look at points for and against. When it comes to points scored, the Bears are 18th in points per game, and the Patriots are 7th. When it comes to points allowed, the Bears are 22nd in points allowed, and the Patriots are 12th. So when it comes to the scoreboard, the clear advantage goes to New England. So the Patriots have the advantage on paper, and I'm taking the Patriots. They're at home. And the Bears, although they do have a really good road record, they seem to show up on these road games, whereas they just disappear in Chicago for some reason. Very uncharacteristic of a Chicago team. But there's a lot of problems going on there, more so than that 3-4 record indicates. And we saw last week the blow up of Brandon Marshall, where he pretty much said, hey, we got a really good team, everyone except for... There was one guy he didn't mention. He said, hey, we got Matt Forte is really good. Me and Jeffrey, we're great receivers. We got a great offensive line. We got a really good defense. He's naming off basically. He started going down the 52-man roster. He's like, this guy's good, and John Smith is good, and Scott Sampson. He's just naming off guys on the bench. They're really good. The one guy he did not mention was Jay Cutler. And it's like, hey, man, what's up with that? You know who Jay Cutler is. You guys were together back in Denver. You know, remember that way back when they were together in Denver? And then they went to, Brandon Marshall ended up in Miami for a little bit. And then he came back reunited with Jay Cutler. It was supposed to be the big reunion. They were supposed to have all this success. Of course, Jay Cutler been injured, in the last couple years. That's gotten in the way of it. But then this year, here it was supposed to be the year. But now we see that there's trouble in paradise. Is freaking Brandon Marshall is not happy with Jay Cutler, and if he's not happy with him, you can surely bet that the rest of the team ain't too happy with him. Is apparently that's where the blame is fallen. And let's look at Jay Cutler's numbers on this season. And he's thrown for 1,866 passing yards, which is pretty impressive. He has 14 touchdowns on the season, but he has 7 interceptions. I mean, 7 interceptions It is a decent amount, but hey, 14 touchdowns to 7 interceptions isn't the worst ratio. You know, there's other quarterbacks with a far worse ratio than that. So it's not like as if he's thrown 10 interceptions. I mean, of course, Jay Cutler is kind of known to have that, I guess you could almost call it Tony Romo fever. As if, I guess he's the new Romo now. Even though Jay Cutler was Romo before Romo was Romo. I mean, this goes back a ways, back even to the days in Denver where Jay Cutler, he's such a gunslinger. He's always taking chances, airing it out. He thinks he can get the ball into places where sometimes you just can't make that throw. Or maybe you could make the throw if there was no defense to have to contend with. But he's trying to force the ball in places at times, and that ends up, in those turnovers. And the Bears, those losses at home, they should have beat Buffalo in week 1. They lost by just the field goal in overtime. I mean, they got beat up by Green Bay, though. And then even Miami handled them pretty well. Cutler, he's seen like against Atlanta, he had 381 passing yards, but then last week, only 190. So he's really been suffering. But let's look over the Patriots, though. At the beginning of the season, everybody was saying, oh, Tom Brady's done, which was like ludicrous. Why would you ever think that, the Patriots are done or Brady's done? Come on, are you crazy? I never once doubted that they would get things back on track. Brady's a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest, if not the greatest quarterback ever to play the game of football. And, I mean, of course, there's the argument between him and Peyton, but we'll see if Peyton can get another ring. Of course, Brady, you never know, he might still have another ring in him too. But right now in this season, he's thrown for 1,705 yards, and he's thrown 13 touchdowns, but only 2 interceptions. So Brady is the definition of taking care of the ball. He does it better than almost anybody. He's one of the best at protecting the ball. He doesn't make too many mistakes. He might not be throwing for, those big yards like in the past, but he did put up 361 against Buffalo. That was his season high. Last week he put up 261 against the Jets. 3 weeks ago, back against the Bengals, he put up 292. So the last 3 weeks, Brady's been pretty solid. Of course, the Patriots' running game is somewhat of a question mark. Ridley went down to injury. Shane Vereen, though, has been looking good, but he's still not putting up a lot of yards on the ground. He's kind of like Forte, Vereen. You got in this game a couple of running backs who both like to, catch the ball out of the backfield. So you see Shane Vereen on the season so far, he has 259 rushing yards, which is not much at all. But he's caught 185 yards worth of receiving yards, so that's where he gets his yards. We look over at Forte, as I mentioned. Forte has 448 rushing yards, and he's caught for 436 receiving yards. So you put that together, that's some pretty big numbers, total yards for Forte. He has been having an impressive season kind of quietly there on Chicago. Of course, Vereen wasn't getting as much looks, with Ridley out there getting the majority of the load. Now we're going to see what's going to go on, who are they going to go with. Either way, the Patriots shouldn't have too much trouble. Their defense has been playing really strong. Of course, they did suffer some injuries to their defense, so we'll see how they respond to that, with Mayo being injured and everything, and Collins. But the Patriots are deep, and they're led by Vince Wilfork, who's one of the best defensive tackles still to this day and age. He's been a dominant presence throughout his career. With him healthy, the Patriots defense should continue to, have success, especially against the pass. They do need to, look out for that run, but the Bears don't really run the ball. So, we look at the numbers. The Bears, they've passed the ball 264 times. They've only rushed the ball 162 times. And so that kind of plays right into the Patriots' hands. They're the Bears. If they want to have any success in this game, they've got to run the ball. That's the only way they could beat the Patriots. But they're not going to do that, so they're not going to really have a chance. And the Patriots should win this game. Maybe it ends up, being a close game, but in the fourth quarter, whether Brady has to come from behind and win this one, or Cutler tries to attempt to come back and falls short with another interception late in the game, that's probably how it'll play out. And either way, the Patriots win, in my opinion, and I think they should win this one, by a touchdown, maybe more. So that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Very interested to read your comments and your ideas. And if you like the show, make sure to hit the like button. How else would we know you like the show if you don't hit the like button? And also, if you want more of this content, go ahead and subscribe, as we bring you upon further reviews for each and every single game, each and every single week, all the way through the season and the playoffs and the Super Bowl. We also do recaps of all of those games as well. So you can hear what we think, and then you can check up and see, were we right or were we wrong? And we also go over that on our weekly show, The Wedge, where we do our quick picks, our fantasy fortune picks for fantasy football. We do the weekly rewind of the week that was, where we go over our picks and we go over the top stat lines for the quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. We also look at the top fantasy performers of the week, and we go over, as I said, our quick picks and fantasy fortune picks, and we talk about all that. And then we also do the Upon Further Review for the Thursday night game, so keep an eye out for that, as we try to get that up definitely before Thursday night. We ran a little late this week, sorry about that, but we try to get it up, Tuesday, Wednesday if possible. We're also covering the baseball playoffs. It's the World Series. It's come down to just 2 teams, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. So we've been covering the baseball playoffs throughout, and we're also covering college football, so keep an eye out for all of that. So thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and have a great weekend and enjoy